Joni talk about her friend that's from the UK.
So everybody, Julian Coulter's calling in from the UK. I talk to him several times a week. He's helped me learn a lot about like the New World Order, Freemason stuff, how to revoke my consent. Before I met him, I of course lost my children in the family court system. My narcissistic ex kidnapped my children, 2 of them in 2013, and then he had help from a PTA lady in 2015, abducted my other children, and coerced them to get on an airplane. I found Julian in actually a narcissistic abuse group, just random. I was going through it trying to figure out what was happening to me, and came across him, and something he was writing struck a chord with me. It was like about the birth certificates and about your name in all caps, and I'd heard it from 2 other people, but I wasn't paying attention. So then I thought, okay, this is the 3rd time I've heard this, and I asked him a question about, I believe, the child trafficking, I call it, in the courts. And the first thing I remember Julian asked me was, do you wear hats? Do you wear boots? Do you like to go outside? Do you like animals? And I'm like, what's happening? And I said, yeah. Now he hadn't had time to even go through my Facebook to look at this stuff. So he explained to me the difference between empathic individual and narcissistic. And then it went from there. Like he taught me, this is why you lost your kids. And anyway, it just developed from there, our friendship, and he's taught me a lot about so many things. So I wanted to share some things with you, and I'll just let it go from there. And then you can ask him any question you want, and he'll fill you in. Okay, go ahead, Julian.
Hi everyone, you have to excuse me, I'm sat in a room and it's a little bit strange, it might be a little bit echoey, but I get a better signal in this room.
Okay.
So, but basically to give you a kind of a further infill from me is having gone through numerous different things of recognising I was being put into the place of corruptions. I had my business originally taken out from me, which was a successful business, building business, and had this great big push to make me go bankrupt when there wasn't any need for it, literally by my accountant. This was in the early days of me starting up my business, and then actually recognised I was being hit by this systematic targeting. And once I'd gone through that, in again attracting narcissistic partners, but on a basis of I did it on a kind of an experimental level. I then ended up with my daughter being taken from me, having been psychologically abused by her mother, and I got taken down the route of social services, started to write lies about me and pushed me into the family fraud court. We call it the family fraud court because it isn't actually a court, it's a legal fraud business, which when you start to look at the in-depth information regarding the paperwork, you get to find out the technicalities. That means they keep you away from the judicial proceedings so they can make everything that they're doing with you highly profitable and dismiss all types of abuse literally from the ground up. From that I then went through it technically and did all of the psychology, the psychopathology and all of the interconnections regarding that, how all of the dynamics work, who they target, why they target them, how they can literally use with the profiling that Jodie was just talking to you about to identify who would be a viable target and who would be vulnerable to narcissistic abuse, narcissistic manipulations and narcissistic control, which Jodie, I was able to tell literally Jodie's dynamic to the point that she's like, okay, how can this guy in England be telling me what happened just here? And so I've been giving Jodie these dynamics of what's gone on a social basis, what goes on in corporate corruption basis, how councils are pushed to work and the corruption that they're pushed to do, which works through central banking control, through corporations and what's known as bond equity profiteering, to push the quotas onto councils in local areas. They have a local authority quota to push these corruptions, and so I've learned the system from an outsider's perspective, which is something that they don't like, because normally the people that know this kind of information
lost you.
What you do is, a few minutes on, you just find the internet. Why don't you get them, why don't you call with your cell phone?
You can log into my hotspot. It'll probably work better.
Are you gonna plug them in? We're gonna plug them in another way, Julian. Hold on.
Here's my hotspot.
It's their internet.
Okay, here we go, they're off, even their hotspot now.
You'll have to call him back, or he will once we get logged in.
We'll find out.
Okay.
Ready to go?
Never get offline.
Well, it'll refresh.
That's a story.
Start.
There's your handset, there you go.
All right, can you hear us?
Hey,
There we go. All right, go on.
okay. Have you still got the images situation set up?
I have your, I have your revelations showing right now.
Okay, cool. No problem. Yeah, so can you just let me know what you got to before it cuts off?
He was talking about the corruption of the courts, he touched on that a little bit.
And the councils, how the councils and the bar members were helping them.
Okay.
I mean, so typically people with
Yeah,
this
but basically the information that I worked out and deciphered was what would normally only be released to high-level Freemasons, and so the Freemason corruption started to crop up regarding what's known as the Phoenix scam, regarding taking people's businesses, the mortgage fraud regarding lending you your own money from your trust fund and then charging you interest on it, which is how the mortgage fraud works. Insurance corruption, which works on the level of a payout on your own insurance, comes from your insurance from your social security money, because you won't be aware that it's worth millions when you were a child and has been increasing in value as not just with your contributions, but with it in investments and an interest that goes with it, with what the system does with it anyway. And then obviously there's the children being worth money, is another corruption where they alienate, take children into the care system and they pay people for foster caring through the trust. There's likewise then the corruptions that go along the lines of the homeless are actually profitable because the authorities will go and address somebody who's having a can of beer, will write down their name on their notepad of someone who's homeless, and they're able to access like $1,000 a time from their trust account. Won't allow them to know that their trust account has got enough money to pay for 3 houses outright on it. And that's how the homeless people and the homeless situation is never sorted out because that's profitable. And likewise, if you've got people who are moving in from another country as immigrants, you've got a population exchange that they need, so you haven't got a unified people. You've got an infiltration of a diluted population, and likewise what they're able to do is claim from the original the country of origin those people have come from. They're able to claim from their trust, from their central bank, so the government of one country will be claiming from the migrants' home central bank, from their trust account, and so they're highly profitable. And what they do is they leave the population to be upset to believe it's taxpayers' money that's paying for it. The taxpayers' money is just the loophole of the monetary system that we change, which is non-existent. It's basically a promissory note system. It's the bond equity which operates everything. So because of that level of corruption and the millions that are involved in it, when I originally uncovered all of this, and then got to the bottom of the birth certificate, the name in capitals, and the status change that they do regarding this, which of you being called Mr. instead of Master, it being one of the big signals that you let the system know that you're unaware of this information. But because of that, I got targeted highly back in 2014 and 15 regarding getting this corruption out. I then proceeded to get it on a basis of having to get the information out over the internet, and so I did it internationally, and then got the information over to people who, like there's Sarah Shaffai, who's over in Switzerland, and so I then hit the main part of the headquarters, as it were, of the Vatican's banking, which is the Swiss banking, which is why you've got the secret societies such as Opus Dei and all operate from Switzerland, Geneva, and why you've got all of the codings that go through there. And Sarah, who was over in Switzerland, when I originally gave her the information, in testing the information out with her concerns, she sent an email to the Vatican to ask if this information was correct, and within less than 5 minutes they fried her computer in the lines of what I'd received already. So back in 2015, 2016, we were having our computers fried, our Wi-Fi's fried for trying to pass over the information of what's now known as the Setri-KV Act of 1666, because it's literally the divide of the secret societies, the aristocratic divide, and the narcissistic supremacy in society, which isn't spoken about, isn't known about, because it is the big secret. So with that, I then proceeded to do the rest of the decoding of how they wrap up things like whistleblowers and as such, and basically found out through the secret societies what they were doing on the basis of doing the unbelievable to make people sound unbelievable. So you've got events like 9/11, 7/7, and you'll start to recognise there's this numerical pattern that is being put forward with all of these events, which is their numerology, and basically it gives the signals to the Freemasons so they recognise it and they know not to speak about it, but it's their signals to one another, so there's a communication channel through the rituals that go on that is the unspoken known information, and keeps the public in the dark, and keeps them at bay of being able to do anything unless they have got these deep-seated secrets, which, as in part of prophecy and part of Revelations, is the reference to the time when all secrets will be revealed. We're now at that time. So prophetically and as on a disclosure basis, this is all of the information that now changes and endangers the system. The system, we're aware of everything that's got to be done, and it's been doing what it needs to do. It's now at a position where it's ready to deliver this information out, having caused the major part of the damage. That the people who aren't going to be able to do anything have already been vaccinated, and so the depopulation by vaccination has been largely going on. And Jody has known, I gave Jody the information months in advance of the virus. We had the date of when the virus was going to be released. And I then started to do the decoding to get it down to the day, sometimes even the hour of what an event would actually be done. So we've then got what's called the day count matrix, which is, I've done the decoding for that. So if I put up some of these infographs and you can see the numbers down on the side of the infographs, they've got what's called the day count matrix coding, which means the Freemasons would see it, know to look for it, have an idea of what's going to be happening because of it. It's also made on the basis that once you're aware of this, it becomes blatant and obvious it's them, but you've got the larger part is that you're now segregated from the mass of the public who don't know, don't care, are ignorant, arrogant, and referencing to everything. So it's literally the minority and the diligent who are willing to know this information get to find out the power of the truth that sets them free. So that's a kind of a quick wrap up of what I've done. Is there anything that you'd like me to speak about more in line, Jodie, because you know the audience better than I do?
Well, I got a question.
Yeah.
So it appears that you have a way to see in the future when the major events are going to occur. You get a pretty good rough idea of that.
Did you hear that?
Sorry,
Well,
there's a bit of an echo. You may need to speak a little bit slower.
You were talking earlier that you told Jody that you knew when the virus is going to be actually, implemented. So you can pretty much put together the major events that are coming past here shortly.
Like he can tell when
Yeah, but-
food shortages are coming.
Okay. Well, why don't you give us something like over the next 6 months, the second half of 2021, let us know what you think is going to happen.
Okay, well, what I've done, I've just put Jodie up the infograph to do with the virus date. So you've got that, so if you put that up on the screen, and then I'll talk.
That recent one? Okay, go ahead.
That's it, yeah, the last one, the virus one.
Got it.
So you've literally got the virus one with all the numbers around the purple virus picture.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. So it's not showing on my. Okay, but basically what you've got on the screen in front of you should be, if you're looking at the 12 o'clock position, you'll see there's the 88,888 day. That's the window of the virus being released at Wuhan. This is the 88,888 day from the day of independence, in July the 4th of 1776. And on that, if you've got a few people who have got the will to get their calculators out, you'll see that 1776 is 888 plus 888. And so these are all numerology kind of ritual orientated plans that were all being divulged and put out by the Jesuits, and that Nostradamus put out. So on the planning side of things, you're talking of centuries worth of plans being put into projects, which the main part of this project was dated from 1897 right the way through till 2017 as the 120-year project to get this all in place. That's what I refer to as the legal override of law, and what you will recognise as the final part of the beast that rises out of the sea, which is the admiralty legalities as the rules of trading which override the law of the land. So everything is completely unlawful, completely corrupt, and done under the legal fraud by the name capital. Okay? With the infograph that you've got, because of the numerology that they use and the patterns of numbers, and they refer to things like 13 times 13 equals 169, so you would have like 169 day intervals that would add up to a sequence of events. And what they did in particular was what was known as the Gates of Baal sequence. So if somebody is able to pick up the Gates of Baal that were in Washington, you'll see that the Gates of Baal was done 419 days before the virus. The killing of Texas was done, Las Vegas, with the guy who was shooting from a hotel, which was actually in front of a pyramid, was 777 days before the virus. And all of the figures that you've got on that infograph there will give you an indication to the different events, who's important. Like you'll see that Prince William is on there with 13,000 666 days from his birthday, and his birthday being the solstice for sun worship of 1982. So the whole matrix is literally what you're seeing there is all different events, all timed in sequence by mathematical patterns of day count in between. So to give events that's just recently been happening is I've been able to virtually predict an event that was meant to happen at Wembley for the 13th of June. And what they've done is they've put it so that England has been winning games on so far all of the timed coded dates that have happened so far. And as tomorrow is a coded date of 7/7, actually the 7/7 bombings of in the UK before. England's game tomorrow should mean England should win again. And if the codes are correct, then on the 14th, England should actually win. But what they're doing is they're playing off a hierarchical role of Italy versus England in the final to show who's actually predominant, who's Mystery Babylon and who's Babylon. And that should be what you should get tonight, as in the results of Italy game, and then the England game tomorrow, who plays in the final. If I'm correct on what they've done regarding their coding that way, that's the coding on a smaller level. But the things to expect are on the 7/7 is more events very similar to the building collapse. They'd recently just happened, which was all coded in line with what they call Jonah codes and the Noah and Ark codes. So if you've got people who are sat in the audience who are willing to Google that there was a guy who was gulped up by a whale from Cape Cod and was carrying the mouth of a whale. They've just done the sign of Jonah. And then if you've got somebody else that can double check this, you've got a boat which is built as Noah's Ark, has been docked in harbour in the UK as a non-seaworthy version of Noah's Ark. And so they put those codes out on prophecy level because we're now going into the position of, for July the 19th, what is known as Tisha B'Av in Hebrew, or the 9th of Av, as in the Hebrew months, and July the 19th is the anniversary of the 2 temples being destroyed in Israel. And so there's multiple codes which all lead to July the 19th. That's the most predominant period. And the UK lockdowns that they're stating are all going to be dropping away, but conveniently come on July the 19th as the main coded date, and that's all been moved from solstice, which they kept emphasising, June the 21st, and that reference has gone. So all of the lockdowns have moved, and this new period of where the lockdown is supposed to come from is bouncing off of these coded dates, but they're also recognisable as prophetic dates. Another key event that they've got that's happening on July the 9th is you've got what's called the Polygon cyber attack simulation, and that will be 33 days till the 11th of August, where there's going to be something which will be happening, which should be in line with a cyber attack, which they've already started to do a reference to this regarding food companies and regards to Bill Gates, and so that the Polygon attack will then have a 33-day period after it, exactly the same as there was what was known as Event 201, which was a virus pandemic simulation event of what they would do in pandemic times, which happened conveniently 33 days before the virus outbreak as the pandemic. And on that reference, you've then got the 33 reference to the 33 levels of Freemasonry and the numerology that goes with that as well. So you'll see there's numerous different things that they put out that are coded, and obviously anybody that's talking like this sounds as if they're crazy, over-fixated, and that's what was known as Machiavellian, but while they do the unbelievable and make those who've worked this out sound unbelievable to anyone who's too ignorant, too lazy, and too superficial to comprehend any of this is going on, which is at the moment minimising, because people are aware that too much has gone on just recently, which is the Illuminati, the Freemasons unveiling this. Now they're in a position that they're in it's too late, people can't go and be unvaccinated as they see it. So those are some of the dates. Key dates that are also lined up. I won't go too much into the code, otherwise it will sound like too confusing to people. But at the 11th of November, as in 11/11, is actually a coding going from the Israel became a nation day, which was 2018, the 70-year period after Israel becoming a nation of May 15. There is a code sequence which finalises for the 11th of November, making that a significant date. There is also, if I think now, off pat, there's so August the 1st is another date that's significant, and one of the big ones is from the 21st of August, which was the Great American Solstice. Everyone should remember from 2017. They switched off the Big Ben in London at the exact time that the eclipse started, and that's now the 4-year anniversary. So they silenced Big Ben, the clock at Parliament, and are due to switch it back off on the 21st of August. And that was the 4-year period, which would be known as the parable of the barren fig tree, where somebody, as in the vineyard manager, was told by the vineyard owner to cut down a fig tree because it hadn't produced fruit for 3 years, and the manager then pleaded for another year to make it the 4th year. If the fig tree hadn't produced fruit in the 4th year, to then cut it down, it then means that by what the New World Order has done, in lines with the parables of and getting away with deception, they've got the ability to cut down the population who are seen as the temple, and that's in line with prophecy because it's a 4-year period after the Revelation 12 sign of 2017.
Do you think we're getting ready?
Sorry.
I got a question, Julian. So you think we're getting close to the tribulation period?
As in actual tribulations, there's what I call the New World Tribulation, the New World Order Tribulation, but we've already entered it.
Oh, we already ended it, okay.
As in the real tribulations that will be the prophetic tribulations, we're very close to it, and it's the breaking out of the truth that comes out with it, which means that parts of it is correct. So the allowance of the third of the population to be killed is part and parcel of what's all going on with the vaccinations, and it's in line with the 70-year period known as the 70 weeks of Daniel from Israel becoming a nation, and the reference to the fig tree parable, which is that the generation that witnesses these things will see it, is we're actually in the prophecy of latter days. But there's the slight mix at the moment between what the New World Order are doing, and then as in they're mimicking parts of this, and it actually coerces in the actual tribulations.
Okay, so what they're trying to do is they're trying to confuse things so people don't really know for sure what's happening. But you mentioned that Israel, you said on November the 11th of this year, Israel will be what? You said 70 years a nation?
But in 2018 was the 70-year weeks of Daniel. Okay. And what it is in a different code of what they do in regards to the 3.5-year prophecy periods, is you've then got the 3.5-year period after 2018, 3.5-year period then lands for November, but they do it on a day count basis, and so that lands on November the 11th.
Okay, I got you. Okay, do you believe
that they actually use some of the numerology? So if you've heard in the biblical term of the 1,260 days, the 1,290 days, and the 1,335 days in biblical, that's where a lot of the numerology comes from.
Okay. Do you believe that it will actually be 1/3 of the planet people will be dying? That's that bad, 1/3? For the vaccination?
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Wow.
In what is in line with the vaccinations and what they know, and in the codes of it, it goes significantly to the point that the main markers, even to the point of when the Pentagon was created and in line with World War II, that's got a knock-on effect where they actually got Dolly Parton to turn around and sing the song "I Will Always Love You," which is one that Whitney Houston sung, where Whitney Houston's part comes into this. That was 11,111 days afterwards. The Dolly the sheep, which is the genetic sheep that they actually created in 1996 and was revealed in 1997, which is another coded year.
That was
called
that was
Dolly.
from Texas A&M did the Dolly sheep.
Oh,
Yeah,
he asked me about
Yeah.
Julian.
Okay, the sheep represents regarding haemophiliac testing and creating a cure for haemophiliacs. You'll start to then realise with haemophilia and what happens with the blood, and factor 9 or factor 10, which is factor X factor, is all of these references then start resounding kind of what you would recognise as genetic. And the blood coagulation of either your blood stops coagulating or it overly coagulates, means you're overly producing like factor 9, and this is one of the things that they do in hospitals. If you've got a relative who turns up and they would like to bump them off quicker, is they inject them with factor 9. They then put them on a ventilator, and the additional air pressure with the factor 9 causes blood coagulation in their lungs, and so their lungs start to break down, and they suffer symptoms of altitude sickness when they do it. This is a prolonged way of doing that.
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second.
Judith, I've been studying Bible prophecy for 46 years this August, and you just blow me away. But I have some questions to help me understand where you're coming from and what I consider to be my position, or what I've uncovered or come to the conclusion of. Maybe is a better way of putting it. It's my understanding that, of course, the Daniel 70th week is, you said that we started in that in 2018, and that would be when we had the four blood moons. Is that correct?
No, the 70th week, as they've got it timed, goes back from 1948 on the 15th of May, which was from the Balfour Declaration.
Okay.
So that's which
the 70th
is
week.
there's a little window period from 1947 to 1948, which is also why the period of 2017 and 18 is the same kind of period. But that's where they're saying the 70-year period, and then the additional time that comes after it means that the 70-year period finishes in 2018, and we've now got the parable of the barren fig tree that comes after it. Take it to 2021, or at its furthest point, it's the code of 211 of 2022, and the 211, which is a prime number and numeral of 11. Probably talking slow, but it means for people to recognise the code. If you have a look at the album that I think her name's Brandy, published, who did this strange farewell with Whitney Houston, who also died on 211, is all of the codes that reference 211 at that time, codes to this 2022 date, which is another big significant marker.
Okay, are we in the last 7 years before the Lord's return and the rapture? Is that what you're saying? We're in the midst of that, and the middle will be sometime November the 11th this year? Is that what I thought I heard you say? Is that correct?
The way I describe it is you've got tribulation, then you've got great tribulation.
No,
Which means there's a 7-year period, the 3.5 period as the New World Order time, which is the 3.5 period that we're in at the moment, and breaking into the worst period that comes after it, which is the Great Tribulation.
Hang
No,
on, Billy.
I get that. The last 3.5 years is the Great Tribulation. Most people miss it and think it's 7 years, but I think we're in agreement on that part. But if the return of the Lord is on the Feast of Trumpets and Tabernacles, which is usually the last of September or the 1st of October in that 10-day period there, then how would the middle be the 11th of November this year?
Because it works on the prophecy of the mustard seed, that the kingdom of heaven starts as a mustard seed, very, very small, and with a minute amount of people in an unseen way, rather than that there is a massive great big coming down from heaven, and that there is this what's known as the rapture, is that the Babylonian pagan deception of the rapture would be that the kingdom of heaven doesn't grow from a mustard seed, because it would happen in an almighty crash. So basically, that what is known as, and the reference of the prophecy of the branch, who is caused to branch, would mean that Mashiach, as in proper name for Messiah, grows up from his place, and that you've got the complete contrast of what the prophecy is in comparison to the Babylonian pagan deceptions of Luciferianism, where most of the people who are going to church on a Sunday and practicing Ishtar and doing everything which is Babylonian pagan haven't realised they're falling for the Freemasonic maintained Constantinian deception, which has gone through the Babylonian pagan Templars, through the Jesuits, which is all coded into this, to the reference of the KJV Bible, which is 1611, which is the exact midpoint between Nostradamus' release of the codes and then the 1666 canon corruption. So it's the 1611 point where all of this corruption was put into the KJV Bible, and then the Babylonian pagan deception, which I always put over to people as is the clearest divide, is the fact that the real name was Yeshua, mother name Miriam, and you've got the Babylonian pagan Luciferian side of things, of where everything is Jesus, Sunday worship, Ishtar, the reference to Christmas's birthday instead of September. So it's the Babylonian pagan spin on things that people have been following, which includes the referencing that they changed in scripture for false doctrine to put the rapture into place, as there is a dissension where there isn't, is the kingdom of heaven grows from the mustard seed and branches out from the Mashiach's place.
Where do you see the confirming of the covenant? That's a 7-year covenant guaranteeing Israel's right to the land. Where do you see that in the mix of what you're saying? Do you have a time period or events that are required? I think I'm going to sit down and shut up.
Yeah, on that, the New World Order has actually played this on several levels, and they're doing it on, there's 3 different time frames, and they've played it on 3 different levels to mask what I would call it as the little horn. So if you're aware of Barack Obama went and did what is known, or what's become known as the Abomination of Desolation, so in March 22, which gives it the Skull and Crossbones Code, Street Food, Skull and Bones. On the 13th, Barack Obama went and stood in the place that was known as the Mashiach's crib and did the what they called the Abomination of Desolation, and they started to refer to it as the Obama-nation of Desolation, and then did a covenant in Israel at that point. There is the emphasis and question mark as, was that the Abomination of Desolation by Barack Obama playing that out? There's also then the reference to Prince William, who from 2018 went to Israel for the first time as a royal member of the family. He's also the solstice-born prince that carried out the ritual at Milton Keynes, which did the kind of the spotlighting, and I was the only person who deciphered this. It's been my deciphering from 2017, and for what's known as the Revelation 12 sign, which was all coded and indicated. I've actually given Jody a picture. Are you able to put the last picture up, Jody?
Yeah.
I think we need to spend about a month together,
Right?
at least.
The last one you just sent? Was that, this is adversary at the top?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that one there. Are the audience able to see it now?
Yep.
Okay. What you've got there is on the 20. Let me just double check because it's been such a long time since I've gone through it. Hold on. On the. Sorry, yeah. I think it's the. It's either the 22nd or the 2nd of February of 2017. This is the 6-month period, 222 days before the Revelation 12 sign. This is what they did with the normal Super Bowl reference. So they've been playing kind of satanic symbolism for a long period of time for the people who recognise it. But this was a key event regarding, they actually did with Beyonce, who actually played out the Revelation 12 sign on stage. So what you've got there is an infograph that I've put up. And at the end of the stage, they had 24 other women dressed. So you can see the headdress is making the moon at her feet. And she sat in the Revelation 12 sign. This was done previous to the Revelation 12 sign ritual that they did, using Milton Keynes, which is the town that's declared as a city because it's got a hidden cathedral. And basically they built it in 1967, 50 years before. Say there was this 50-year anniversary, which actually was done not on the anniversary date, it was done for the Revelation 12 sign on the 3rd day. So what you've got in the infograph there is the new numerology that's got reference to it. Actually, sorry, it's the 12th of February, you can see now. And that's what they had literally played out. So she's got the headdress of the sun, as enclosed in the sun, in reference to Revelation 12, and the woman who's dressed in the sun with the moon at her feet and travailing in birth to give birth, which was Jupiter buzzing around the womb of Virgo, the Virgin, to come out on the September 23rd. If I now send this infograph to Jody, so if you can put this up on screen, you can then see literally just the map of Milton Keynes. And scroll down. Apologies for the way. This is what's as I reference as the gate sequence. So anybody that was aware of the gates of fire that they were putting around in Washington, which was exactly 1 year after this Milton Keynes event, but they also went to Dubai and the other key pillar places. They did this gate sequence to open the giant gate of Hades at Milton Keynes, which has got the 2-pillar reference of the plus and ultra on the front of it. It's got it's called the escape.
Can you send it?
And
I don't see it.
I'm literally just scrolling down at the moment.
Okay.
2 seconds, sorry, there it is there. Okay, that's the next one, and then I'll describe it. For pictures, you've got it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so on the yellow line that you've got in the picture, that's actually the Solstice Line. That's actually replicated from London as the mall that the Buckingham Palace is built on. It's also matching not 126 degrees, but the Pentagon is built on, I think it's 114 degrees, which is the solstice angle because of the globe. So where the sun would come up on the solstice day, for the longest day, that's the furthest angle that you would get on the solstice day for the sun to rise and to set. So at the end, you can see the black circle, which is known as the black MK rose, or the Rosicrucian. That's where the sun would shine down the yellow line. It would go through the building, which you can see in the top left-hand corner, which is depicted with the Eye of Ra, with a glass front and back, so that the sun would shine through that building as the Eye of Ra down the centre line of the road, called Midsummer's Boulevard for that exact reason. It shines over what is known as the Solstice Stone. It goes over several different monuments, which depicts another kind of ritual. It goes down into the railway down at the bottom, which is 3 mirrors facing in on each other with a clock in the centre. That's another type of Satanic ritual. That's the layout of the road, and then even the road names are referencing the middle row is Midsummer's Boulevard, as I said before. The 2 inner roads are Silbury and Avebury Boulevard, which are the 2 Druid places where rituals were done. And then the outside road is Child's Way and Portway, because it's child sacrifices needed to open the portway in reference to the ritual of Baal, and Baal would be the gatekeeper and the gate opener. So they did the gates of Baal around London on the Feast of Baal, to do the reference to the gate of Baal in Milton Keynes, where they had the blue bull on the side gate, and the actual reference to it being the dome, which is the womb, and being the tunnel that emanates from the pit. It's called the X-scape because it's the X mark on it, which is actually the reference to the rings that go around Saturn. And the inside, there's also 2 red stars on the floor and on the ceiling. So you've got the as is above, as is below pentagram in the cinema, and literally it's the whole building is all coded. And then to look more in depth into the actual different parts of the map, you'll see that there's a solstice stone which is on the end of the yellow line. That's the minus 0.777 degrees of longitude. Sorry, the 0.666 degrees of longitude is further up in Milton Keynes. So Milton Keynes has been placed literally in the longitude and latitude positions, referencing the Da Vinci Code. So if anyone's seen the Da Vinci Code, you'll see there's reference to longitude lines and why they're so important. That was literally done for that event. So the event that took place is you had the solstice-born prince stood on the solstice line of the Rosicrucian, which is the black symbol up in the top right-hand corner, on the missing symbol as the missing symbol of Freemasonry, and proceeded to open the 5th line on the 24 pillar lineup, which was the ceremony to open the gate of Hades for the reference of the Revelation 12 sun. So basically everything sun orientated to be Luciferian. But this event went and took place, not obviously being publicised, and in 4 years nobody else was aware of it. Other people had spoken that Milton Keynes was obviously some kind of ritual, but nobody actually deciphered it, decoded it, and I've been putting out the information for the 4 years, and this is why the 4 years is so relevant, because the information has been there for everybody. Like Jodie's had it, but the block has always been a nose that ignore Jodie on the American side of things. Jodie's got more information regarding this than anybody literally in the USA.
Okay, Julian, here's my next question. Since 1/3 of the population you believe will be dying from the vaccination, which should start taking effect here shortly. Actually, a lot of people are already dying from it now. Will this occur over the next 2 years or so? And then once that happens, it'll be complete chaos all over the world, because if you lose 1/3 of the population, how are you going to train all the skilled positions, medical, nuclear plants, what's going to happen? What do you foresee going to happen?
Have you in general heard of what's known as the Georgia Guidestones?
Yeah.
It's the 6th trumpet.
Okay, I've just put the image up. Jodie said, click it.
Frank had a question too. Is it the 6th trumpet? Is his question too?
You understand that, Julian?
Sorry, I
that the
got the first part and I didn't get the second part.
Is this the 6th trumpet, as in the Bible?
In Revelation.
Not not New World Order wise, yes. Prophecy wise, no. Because that's the thing, it's recognising the spin that they're putting on it to deceive people to think it is, that the people don't grasp what's going on, and on their part, what they're doing is they're minimising the battle of who's going to be left. You better fight the battle against them to get rid of them. And if you consider that the only amount that's needed is the 144,000 of what would be the harvesters, on their part, you're talking population-wise, 1 in 52,000 makes up the 144,000. So the whole emphasis of it will be like it was in the days of Noah, as in the people that are aware of this and will be the messengers and the servants in regards to what happens, is you can see that there is actually a lot of distance between all of the different people, because it's a worldwide conflict which takes place before it heads to Jerusalem.
What about the 4 horsemen? What do you know about that?
The 4 horsemen.
Again, that's it can be up for debate. Even on this side of things, I actually don't like talking too much about this, because Jody will laugh at this because of the inferrals it's got regarding my participation. Because this puts me bang in the spotlight on the prophetic position because of the decoding I've done, because nobody else has been able to decode it like I have. And so I have the emphasis of actually not like suggesting those different things, because I've even had the false accusations of the system of me stating I am the Messiah, I am an MI5 agent. I've literally got about 25 different things I've been falsely accused of saying that I am. That all got put out on videos and all sorts, going back 4 or 5 years ago. So all of the things that they were falsely accusing me of back then, whilst I was deciphering it, made me recognise I was onto something, but not realising how much it was going to put me into the spotlight for the position we're in now.
I got you. But since all the things that appear to be that a lot of population will be dying, it's best to get out in the country. Don't you feel, and try to get away from the cities and start, preparing yourself?
Yeah. Yes. So if you mean get out into the country, as in to get out into the countryside, rather than get out of the country, as in the USA, then yeah, fully behind you.
Is there any?
Obviously not to turn around and leave. There's no real necessity to turn around and try to leave the country, because the problem is everywhere.
There's no country in the world
certainly
right
to
now.
Get away from.
Is there any
Certainly to get away from the cities, because you're going to have most of the conflict and oppression is going to come literally from the people who are fighting to survive, and the imposed survival of the fittest that they will be triangulated into.
Is there any country that appears to be the best location in the world to go to? Like New Zealand?
Texas.
Yeah.
Texas.
Texas is
Texas is the best country by far.
Right.
But ironically, I've got a really close friend who's actually, I've heard this evening that she's actually thinking of moving to Texas, where she's actually originally from, and but she's actually quite local to me, but she's talking about heading over your way. Country-wise, I would say I'll go for the places that are already least populated, because obviously there's less oppression, there's less military action required. There's going to be the shortages of foods that they're going to provide. It even works on the basis of there's no point having somewhere that's obvious that you grow your food, because they will go and spray it as a form of disrupting what you're trying to do, unless you're literally that remote that they're going to leave you alone.
Okay.
I have a question.
The figures are actually on the Georgia Guidestones show that their plans is to remove the population down to literally 6.6%.
Hang on one second, Julian.
And the
One second. Jason's got a question.
Have you heard anything about Trump being a 32nd degree Mason? And also, why do you think he's why do you think he's telling people to take the jab?
Well, on this side of things, Trump is one of the most obvious plants there is. There hasn't been any president that isn't a Freemason. when you get into the coding of everything, even the fact that most people don't know that Trump had Trump fire, the gate of bar was actually placed in between the needle of or the obelisk and the dome in Washington DC during the Kavanaugh route, which Trump played all of his part. Trump signed Sunday law on the build-up to the Revelation 12 sign. There's literally a category of things that shows that Trump has been one of the key parts in this, even his birthday being 777 days from the, or it's either 772 or 700 days from the Day of Israel. All of those different things shows different codes, and this is where what they do on the coding side of things is even the side that they make him deliberately orange is in reference to an advert in the UK, so you'd have to know about this in the UK to see what they're doing with this. There used to be an older advert which was "You've Been Tangoed," which was about an orange guy that used to come and slap you in the face to shock you. That's the whole thing of it. Comes from. And the names, the references, and even his birthday being in reference to the Grenfell Tower tower burning in London, and then having his own tower fire. All of that is coded beyond recognition. There's even, if you go on YouTube and actually type in Trump admits to being a Freemason, there's actually a small video of him being sat at a table with a group of black people, and then basically the guy states about how long he's been married, starts giving some numerology, and then Trump says, oh yeah, of course I would know that because I'm a Freemason. So that's all of the deliberate stuff that they did. There's even numerology codes regarding when they put out the warnings that were meant to be a text warning that went out to everybody, and Trump coded that by sending it out at 2:18, which in the year 2018, which meant they lost the zero as you do in numerology, and then that was the day count code to the Paradise Fires, which was all Jew weapons created. And then they even put out the shown aluminium engine blocks and stuff like that that had been melted because it was microwaved. All of that was literally coded with Trump codes attached to it.
You all remember that? We all got a text that Trump put out. Do you recall that? What he's talking about?
Yeah.
You know?
I thought somebody else sent it, but.
No, most phones got it.
Okay.
That he's talking about. And then the Paradise Fire happened that he's talking about. Paradise, where was it?
California.
Yeah. So,
What about the jab?
Jason wants to know, what about the jab, we call it? Why is he kind of encouraging people to take that? The warp speed?
Because he's part of the depopulation.
Right. What's the connection between Chernobyl and the blazing mountain that hits the feet of the image of Nebuchadnezzar?
What's the connection between Chernobyl
And the flaming mountain
and the flaming mountain?
that hits the feet of the image of Nebuchadnezzar.
That hits the feet of the image of
Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar?
Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon.
I don't know. Sorry, are they still speaking?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I don't know too much about the image hitting the image of Nebuchadnezzar, but what I can tell you is the codes on Chernobyl are off the scale on the levels of the codings to what the Freemasons did. Exactly the same as 3 Mile Island. Anything that's had nuclear relevance to large oil spills, tanker crashes and stuff like that, those are all part and parcel of the of being on coded dates to and Chernobyl is actually the 211 code that I spoke about earlier. Chernobyl, I'm just scrolling through for it now to see if I can find it. It's actually the dates. Jodie knows some of these from her speech. But the date between Israel became a nation, going back to World War I, and then World War II in reference to the Titanic sinking is another coded date, and then the Chernobyl date is actually If you'd be able to put that one up, Jody?
Where's that one? You just put one?
Yep. Okay, so on that image there, you'll see that there's, it's 12,345 days from World War I to the day that Israel became a nation. You'll see it's exactly 10,000 days from Titanic sinking to World War II starting. And then it's 12,345 days from Chernobyl to the 2/11 date of 2020, and that's the 2/11 date that's actually doubling up from 2020 and 2022.
Okay. Julian, what do you think about the international monetary system? Is the Federal Reserve and the World Banking System going to reset, where they'll issue different type of currency? Will silver and gold go up, and will cryptocurrency flourish?
Yep, but it's not that cryptocurrency will flourish. The system that they're going to put in place, which will get torn down when everybody finds out about the Secretary KVA, it's what they're planning to flourish is. I'm just about to send it to Gary in a second. There you go, Jody. If you can put that one up. That photograph there, kind of a photographic image, which is almost in the middle, just to the right-hand side of the Phoenix with the binoculars. This is that is actually where in 2018, exactly on the 30-year anniversary for the second, I waited for this cryptocurrency, which was created with the 30-year interval advertised in 1988. Obviously on The Economist, and so they advertised it. I waited for it to come up. You'll see it's set at 000. So that was all created in line for them to be prepared for now. So if you were to be making billions on cryptocurrencies, this is the one that they've got set for them to materialise, having broken down all of Bitcoin and got rid of all of their competition, much like they did by the Titanic previously. Anybody that was seen as a potential partner that they were looking to get rid of, it will know about this, and hence they put it into The Economist 30 years ago, so you would have the heads up of what's going to be the successor. So if you have a look at the codes that go down on the side, you'll see the different reference to the different numbers, and like who died, who's in reference to, where there's always Baal fires in reference to the money, because it's Baal reference that you would normally burn your child to be seen as successful, and the Baal would then give you wealth because you sacrificed your first child to being burnt. So if you have a look, you'll see there's 419 days to the singer called Keith Flint dying, who sung the song Firestarter, part of the Prodigy. Literally, you've got to mix the media in with all of these different codes to see how it all correlates.
Julian, that photograph next to the one with the binoculars, it's blurry, but do you have a way of getting that to me and I can email you? Is that what you want?
Well, actually, I had a question
Oh,
for
I
you.
have a question about it.
If I understand what you're saying, based on the events, that the New World Order will have a world currency that will be a digital currency, that basically coinage and paper money will be eliminated. Is that what I understand?
Yep, and it works on the level of that they've obviously got the full control of anything that's virtual. They can make your digital bank account disappear or go up as and when they need, and it isn't backed by anything as in gold or anything on that basis, because they've got to have full control and the fluidity to say what happens and what doesn't, which is what they've been doing regarding the promissory notes. So they've been printing money and getting everybody to follow the printed money, rather than the gold backing. And the key thing about this is people are under the impression that they don't know how the gold got from America in Fort Knox to being all of it in China.
And this,
That was actually procured by Bill Gates. So if anybody went to Google how much gold is in a Pentium 486 processor, you'll see that what they did was they put 33 grams of gold in everyone's computer. Then they got everyone to change their computer in rapid succession back in when computers first came out, not realizing that you had 33 grams of gold in just the processor alone, and that when they scrapped them and then shipped them all over to China to start producing new processors, that's how they transferred all of the gold of America via the scrapped processors, and literally did it by wiping it under the nose of everybody who had a computer.
well, this digital currency, will that help fulfill the prophecy where you won't be able to buy or sell unless you have the mark of this new world order?
Yep, but basically, because if they've got more than the control that they've already got now, which means they can switch off your currency, they can switch off your ability to learn. That's where they get that part. What they've been doing for several years is they always saturate every possibility to keep the conversation so that the whole thing of the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is very simple. They will require of you to have a mark so that when it gets to that crunch point where they've got everybody broken and down in that point where it's you need to have this mark, is by accepting the mark. There'll be those who contend it. To those who have the seal of Abba as their mark, that will be the war that they cause in conflict. And if you've already taken the mark, then that means that you'll be destroyed, because the adversary will have that mark themselves.
So you concur then that people that do not take the mark will not be able to buy or sell in the one world order, new world order system. Do you think there's any possibility of an alternative digital currency that might be available to those that choose not to take the mark that could somehow circumvent the world order, or not?
Well, this is the thing. This is the part that, like with Jody, Jody's been in a stuck position because by doing what we call the 22 twos, means that what you'd be doing is actually taking control of your secretary, KB, trust, monetary system. You would be able to get out what's needed now for the period that we're facing, and you would prevent them having access, which actually brings down the New World Order. And then you would be in the position then to recognise that the GDP isn't going to change. So the abundance that Abba gave everybody is in probably the treasure that you're supposed to invest everything in, having found the pearl that's in the field, in the pearl of the field parable. So that what Abba set aside for you as the abundance, you would then take control of, and so you would become financially controlling of your own situation and by the estate that you were supposed to receive by your equal share.
If
when it's first got back, there will be the equivalent of, you can imagine countries like America and England is you're going to be having in the regions of probably 30 to 40 million for yourself. But there's also then the rebalance of what's called a Jubilee reset, which means the countries that have had it taken from them would also be rebalanced.
Are you talking about if we're given the money off of our trust? Is that where you're going with that?
let me ask you this.
Well, not so much giving it. It's taking control of it and then being in the position to have the financial control and the law control that you're supposed to have, that was put in place by Abba via the law, and because of the openness of it, that's all part and parcel of the of how the New World Order comes down, and how the actual rebalance of everything that needs to be set up for the Kingdom of Heaven is all to be put into play. If people had adhered to the truth back in 2017.
Is it correct that
If you
is it correct?
if you can pop that one up, Jody.
1 second, he's got another question, go ahead.
Is it correct that those who take the mark of the beast in the one world order system are damned? Is that a correct interpretation of what you understand Revelations to say?
Yeah, well, not only damned, but on the position of what the harvesters that will do, those that they will be taken down because they will be carrying the mark to say that they are willing to go into battle. So those who are willing to fight for the satanic forces who also have the mark, if there isn't going to be any differential between those who have it and who don't have it, it actually goes back into the Bible. If you look into the seal of Abba, that what was done before, there was a population clearing, so that basically that those who were contending the system that were in, they were given a mark of having Abba's mark written on their head,
Right.
and then they went and did a population clearing. Anybody that didn't have that mark on their head was killed, which meant you either chose you either chose to have Abba's mark. If you had no mark, you could still be seen as a concern, so you'd probably be left as the wheat. But those who carry the mark would be considered as they've already marked themselves as being of the army of Satan. So those who were deceived to take it would be killed, and hence there is let no man deceive you.
How do those that do not take the one world order mark, how do they do commerce during the time before the rapture?
That they don't. That what they do is they wouldn't do commerce. That's what they would do is cooperative trading.
Barter. Okay. So we need to all live on
So instead of corporate, it goes cooperative. So if you sell honey, you would be trading pots of honey for the lady's eggs who keeps all the chickens down the road, and so the cooperative markets would be exchanges on those different things, and that's where the communities cooperatives would all come back into play.
So what about, we got a lady here that I believe she bought some property, I just want to throw this out there, bought a lot of property somewhere else. How could we do that? Just we all pay a little bit of her land and go out there and live and barter on that land?
Read out the
Not
shrub.
at the moment you can't. On that part, the more versatile you are to be, and being able to up and leave because you're being targeted, anything which means that you're easily located, easily easily located, easily tracked, or that there is a situation if you're marked to be got rid of, is that you can go away and come back. That you're on a much safer basis of having that versatility. If you think about what it says in prophecy, as in on that day, be ready to run, you're going to have your own family members who are going to turn around and tell you, don't run, don't come back. They will hand you over. So the whole emphasis of get away from the house, don't even go back to your own house and go through your own house, because your own family members will sell you out on the basis that you've been targeted. They will target the empathic people first, those that have the eyes to hear and the ears to hear, the eyes to see and the ears to hear, who are the threat to the system by this information being passed around, because you'll be able to take down the legal fraud with the law. That's how the system is destroyed. So anybody that's seen as the Bible threat is going to have the whole emphasis of their own family members who aren't awake, who have been vaccinated, are going to literally hand over the people who are going to need to run away from their own home or not go back to the field and go and get their coat. That's what that reference is to.
Oh, you mentioned it earlier, if you take the mark of Abba, are you spared? Did you say that? You will be spared if you take his mark?
Well, it means that you will be in the back. You will be in the battle of stating that what you're doing is you're standing in the war to be with Abba. So those who would be the harvesters would have the mark of Abba against those who would have the mark of Satan to be in contention.
Okay. Now,
And the main thing about it is that most people who aren't narcissistic wouldn't know how to profile someone who is narcissistic. narcissistic people are actually very good at profiling empathic people, and so it means they've got the upper hand, so they can see more who this conflict would be about. And that's why when there is what's known as there'll be 2 laid in bed and only 1 will return, there'll be 2 in the field and only 1 will return, and there'll be 2 women by the grindstone and only 1 will return. That's not in reference to being raptured up into the sky like they would like you to think. What it's in reference to is when you start to recognise who used to be your best buddy, but you've actually worked out that they're around you because you're empathic, they're narcissistic, they're exploitative, they're uncaring, you're very caring, and that dynamic will start to be more evident of who will turn on who, and the fact that narcissistic people will kill people and wouldn't bury the body because they really don't care. Empathic people would start to kill people and recognise they will be recognised for trying to bury the body and being respectful, so that they're not in a position to bury the body. And that's where it says in Luke, you will know where this has happened because the eagles or the vultures circle the bodies, means that there's going to be bodies left everywhere because of the conflict that takes off, just even on the empathic narcissistic one.
Okay, now we're short on time, so why don't we close with talking about the birth certificate?
Yeah, do you have that? Can you throw that up again? This would be a good segue to what Glenn's going to do, I think.
Okay. Would you prefer the infograph of the set UKB, or would you prefer the birth certificate, or would you like both?
Yeah, give me both.
I'm just curious, does he not believe in the rapture at all then? Or is he post-tribulation, mid-tribulation?
You believe in the rapture, don't you?
I mean, where is he saying that the rapture is going to happen?
Do you hear that?
There's no rapture.
Well, put it
Yes,
this
sir.
way, there is no word for rapture in
Okay, the
Scripture.
great taking away then, where,
Okay.
there's two times where Christ is going to come back, where he said he was gonna come back. There's the second coming in Christ, where he comes back for the battle of Armageddon. But there is a place in the Bible where it does talk about where he's going to come back and take the church back to heaven. Where is that going to happen in your timeline?
No, that's the thing. It doesn't say that, and the first
So
coming
you
never
don't
said
believe in
that.
the rapture then?
That's the thing, is that there is, and this is the thing, what you're referring to is the 2 tear-ups. If I put it into the terms tear-up, is the reference to the 2 tear-ups that are going to happen, is there's going to be the tearing between the narcissistic and the empathic as that's awoken. And then there's going to be the reference to that, is that the news is then going to get to the churches who are Luciferian, who are going to find out that what they've been doing is Luciferian. That is going to be then the next terror and the great big awakening. And the big thing for this is for you to have your own personal evidence of this, is the reference to the timing of it is down to the twinkling of an eye. It doesn't mean that everything's all going to happen globally, all in that instance, right at that moment, and every change is going to happen in the blink of an eye. It means it's going to happen for the eye of the beholder when they have that realization of what it actually means. So it's in the eye of the beholder, not down to one moment in time, which would have a reference to when this actually happens. So when they say that there is the coming of the coming of the Son of Man will be seen in the clouds, it doesn't say up in the sky as in there can be the clouds of war, the clouds of confusion, the clouds of darkness, or those things, as in, because if you go through the mustard seed references, you'll see that the Mashiach, okay, will actually come amongst the people, but will be unseen, and the kingdom of heaven will grow in an unseen way from the small tiny mustard seed government that grows. Okay, not the referencing as in coming down and the kingdom of heaven comes down from the skies, is the kingdom of heaven is amongst you and within you, and the clearing of the people and the removal of the tares means that the empathic will be those that came last and that come first, and that those who came first, who were the narcissistic, they will then come last. So the whole referencing to literally those who save others will save themselves, and those who save themselves save no one, means that those who are hidden and underhanded and try to go against this will get taken out by both the narcissistic and the empathic, because they do neither. So You gaining support by telling everybody about the birth certificate being out and open and saving the people, saving the homeless people, means that you will have more support from the people who know you're genuine and against the system and everything satanic. You'll be known by your fruit because of it. That's the reference into who will be saved and who won't be saved. And then the reference is those who will be saved are those who endure to the end. All of this conflict and the conniving, the backstabbing and the referencing of who's going to be taking out who means that you're actually in blessed position, because if you die doing what Yeshua did, which is sacrificing yourself and moving yourself forward, means if you die in doing the right thing, you go to heaven. And if you stay and endure and last this out, then you're part of the kingdom of heaven being created here on earth, which is the kingdom of heaven for the reason that we're in the year 5781, which means there's another 1,000 years of the kingdom of heaven to go here to last the 7-year period of prophecy.
Where do we
So-
get, where do we get the where do we get the information if they've been deceiving us?
Where do we get the information?
You know, like Yeshua and if they've been deceiving us in our Bibles, I mean, where do we get the information? You know,
The right information?
The right information.
Well, can I do something? Can I put this on the basis, especially the gentleman who's done the 40-year prophecy stuff? I would love to have a one-to-one conversation with him by phone. If you can give the lady who's just asked the
That's Kelly.
question my details so that she can ask me personally as well. Okay, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm just a little bit concerned if there's people waiting to do the birth certificate information and somebody else is waiting to talk. I don't want to keep, I could talk for 5 hours on this subject and ruin other people's
Can I ask
information.
one question?
Yeah, we got
Shall
one
I
more.
speak to those people who've got those key questions personally?
Let's do one more question.
One more
then
question,
We've got,
and
you know,
then,
Glenn's gonna
I'll
talk
get
about
Kelly, I'll get Kelly to call you, and then, one more question though for you.
Yeah, so Julian, there's, I'm trying to think of the book that it's referenced in, but where Yahweh is talking about maintaining the sanctity of the Sabbath, and he says that this is my seal. And so if you bear the seal of Yahweh, then that would be maintaining the sanctity of the Sabbath, which also is the fourth commandment. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but that's you just hit the key word, and that is exactly the commandments. Even to the point of the third commandment, I will never say Abba's name to someone else. I only ever say Abba's name to Abba. And the big profound proof in this is if you.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last sentence.
I think
I lose
our
it?
hotspot may have broken down.
God, because we're hitting the nail on the head, that's why.
We lost it.
No, the hotspot's still working. It's the internet. They probably don't want us to hear this.
The most important question.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, that, you know, I'll find the verse and I'll bring it to you guys.
You want to just go on the cell phone, finish it up?
But where he says maintaining the sanctity of the Sabbath, which is Shabbat in Hebrew, which is on Saturday. It actually goes from like Friday at 6
Friday night
o'clock
to Saturday night.
till Saturday
And
night.
that
at
was
6
since the
o'clock.
millennium period, the
And-
1,000 years.
Right, exactly. And those partaking on Sunday, the day of the sun, the pagan sun god.
That was Constantine that
Right.
moved it over to
Right.
the sun god.
Still on.
Right? But also the Sabbath being the Passover meal,
He's cut off on his end.
right? Which is,
Are you equating that with the seal of God and?
Yes,
Cut off on this
yes.
end because it shows you.
Because, well, in the reference of the forehead means that it's on your mind constantly, because when he says you must worship your God with all of your mind and all of your spirit and all of your heart, you know, when it's, you know, the other references in these words you must wear as a frontlet band also is on the forehead, which is talking about being on the mind, being that you're thoroughly steeped in these things and that you know, reflect on them daily.
Which we don't do.
Well, some of us don't do.
I mean, I don't know anybody walks around with the seal unless they're in the.
It's not a literal seal. It's not a literal seal. It's that cognition of you know, contemplating these things on a daily basis and going through them.
So really, other than the not doing work, aren't we supposed to honor the Lord every day of the week? not just that.
Every day, right, and
There is
every action you
one
take.
sanctified day, though, there's
Yeah.
one set aside, and I believe it's the same.
Well, every action you take, your first thought should be, how can this bring glory to God before you act, before you create an action?
What some people are saying, the shot affects that area of your brain.
Right, and now they're
Takes it away.
working with magnets and you know, different, and putting magnet or iron oxide materials and things so that they can use these 5G things to help dumb down that.
Destroy that
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
That
That's
God
weird.
is loving you.
That's weird you're saying that, because my buddy just sent me a text, well, red meat has now been proved to be magnetic, like the people who had the jab, due to graphene oxide. They're
Right.
injecting the cows with the death shot, and this is why the meat factories were shut down for a while.
Let's go ahead.
And it's also to let the spike proteins proliferate systematically.
What?
See, that's what worries me, that's what's got me the most afraid is the food situation, because, I mean, we have so little control over our food.
Right.
I mean,
So another thing I'd like to bring up that I kind of foresee happening, all right? Okay, you remember what happened with Snellmageddon? Okay, I couldn't go to Walmart and buy food. All their food rotted, all right? You couldn't go to the